newer to EPA, started about a year ago, have been supporting several other projects at EPA, including the Clark Fork River and Milltown projects, as well as the basin mining area projects since I started at EPA. My background is generally in consulting. I also work for an environmental response trustee in the cleanup of Superfund and other hazardous sites across the country. I've done work from all around Montana down to Colorado, Idaho, all the way to Mississippi and back. I am really excited to be here. It's nice to be close to home. I do live in Helena, but I've called Helena home for about 10 years now. My family moved up here about 10 years ago after my husband and I returned from Peace Corps. And my background is in environmental engineering. Went to Colorado School of Mines in Golden. Introducing Emma Rott.
So my name is Emma Rott, and I also, Molly and I conveniently started on the same day at EPA about a little over a year ago. Prior to that, I was working in consulting, so I got my environmental engineering degree from Montana Tech, so I'm excited to be back here in Butte. Yeah, so got my degree in environmental engineering, worked in consulting similar to Molly, where I worked on sites across the United States. I've supported, since being at EPA, I've supported the Spring Site Tailings Operable Unit, the state needs cleanup, but part of the Silver Oak Green area site, and the Flat Creek Iron Mountain Mine site, which is in Superior, and a little bit on Spurgeon Cone in Missoula. So, reiterating what Molly said, really excited to be part of the Priority Soil Operable Unit team as a whole, and to learn from all of you, because we have a lot to learn, and I'm sure you all understand.
Yeah.
So
we also have some other potentially new faces.
Yeah.
We'll introduce Mackenzie Meter.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Meter. I'm a community involvement coordinator with EPA supporting this site. I've also worked on Smurfit Stone Mill, Billings PCE, and a handful of others across Montana. Really grateful to be part of this team and it's good to support.
We also have Catherine Jenkins.
Hi, my name is Catherine Jenkins. I'm a community involvement coordinator with EPA as well. I'm based out of the Denver office, and apparently I don't know how to do a Teams remote meeting. So thanks for scheduling all of that when we got started. I have been with the agency for about 10 years, and I've worked on a variety of sites throughout the region in Colorado and Utah. I worked up in Libya a little bit as well. And most of my focus, and before coming to you all, is emergency response and removal. So I deployed to national events, the East Palestine trained around the Maui wildfires as well. So I have kind of a breadth of communications experience and both in communities and in, nice to meet all.
And the last face that we want to introduce is our site team is Carolina Ballou, who is our section supervisor for Superfund.
It was not appropriately placed. Hi, everyone. I'm Carolina Ballou. I've been with EPA for about 6 months now, and I'm the Section C supervisor, and that is for the Superfund sites in Montana. Previously, I worked for Montana DEQ for 5 years as the federal Superfund section supervisor.
So Charles' name is on this slide too, and he's another community involvement coordinator who's supporting us from Denver. He just wasn't able to make it up here today. So
we are going to go through a few site updates and get to the lead guidance. We're going to hold questions and comments, concerns to the end, so that Mike can facilitate that part of the conversation. So we appreciate you holding on to those questions. We also, in the next slide, I want to highlight that there's a lot more to the Butte site, as I'm sure you're all aware, than just Butte priority soils. And in the future, we're hoping to do more of a collaborative community meeting where we can engage a lot of the other project managers from the other operable units, because there's a lot of really good site work going on across the entire site.
Yeah.
So
great. Okay. So I think what we want to really cover here is acknowledging that there are a lot of conversations and questions and things that have been discussed within Butte priority soil that you're probably asking for updates from us on today. And ones that are coming to mind for us were on-site material, road gulch design, repository siting, I'm sure a slew of others. And what we have to say right now is that we don't have any updates. We are really looking forward to talking with you all afterwards to understand what kind of updates you're looking for, what kind of information and questions that you have, so that we can turn those into future meetings and take that into consideration where we can really hone in and be able to answer those. Because at this point, Smalley and I are getting up to speed. Our understanding there's no update for us to provide. And thank you. We're going to hold questions to the end.
That's what I thought. Okay.
So I think we're gonna, at the end, please let us know if you have any sort of that dialogue that we want to be able to set up our meetings to be the most effective way for us to communicate with people. So with that being said, tonight we're gonna focus on lead. We want to spend the time that for us to communicate to you this news from us and to allow dialogue between us and you on this topic. So in January of this year, EPA issued an updated lead guidance. The last time that was updated, or the first time it was issued, was in 1994. So that's the first time in 30 years that EPA project site teams have had a new tool to attack these sites, residential lead sites across the nation. So this applies to all Superfund sites and all river sites, again, across the nation. It allows EPA site teams to approach these projects with the latest and best science to make sure that we're creating the most protective remedy and protective cleanup for the communities that we're working in. It also supports us in recognizing multiple sources of lead. So as we know here in Butte, there are multiple sources of lead, and that's going to allow us, again, to work towards the most protective cleanup and the best cleanup that we can have for this community. So, yeah, next slide. Thank you. So the guidance, I don't know how many people have dove into it, but it really focuses on the idea of screening levels. And what I hope we can all walk away from this meeting tonight is to understand the difference between a screening level and a cleanup level. But the guidance really focuses on screening levels. And in the guidance, it notes that screening levels, the values of screening levels have decreased with the updated guidance. So previously, a value of 400 parts per million of lead in soil was used as a screening level at sites across the nation. That number has been now reduced to 200 parts per million and 100 parts per million. A screening level is what's used at the very beginning of sites. So it's used as a number that EPA uses to identify, is there a problem or is there not a problem? So as site teams approach a site and identify, as they're collecting samples, they use those values to really figure out, do we need to continue here and help remediate this problem, or do we not? Those values are generic. They're used across the nation. So those values, again, every single Superfund site with residential lead contamination of soils are going to be using those numbers. Once we, EPA, identify that there is a problem, then you start diving into what you have already done, is looking at the remedial investigation and conducting risk assessments. So identifying, okay, we know we have a problem, now let's quantify that problem and use site-specific data to help us identify what we call cleanup levels. Those cleanup levels are, again, using site-specific information and then memorialized in a record of decision. So screening levels are not cleanup levels. Cleanup levels are not screening levels. Sometimes they end up being the same on certain sites, but what I really want to focus here as we move forward to talking specifically about Butte is we are at the cleanup level phase. You already have the cleanup level for soil contamination and residential soil contamination with lead. And this, we're going to focus on what this means specifically to Butte. Okay.
Yeah. So at this point, there's a lot going on. There's a lot that we're having to reevaluate. We're having to really take into consideration the magnitude of what this could mean for the community. And so we're currently looking at the evaluation of the information that we have now for the site, looking where we may need additional information to support decision-making. And we're working through kind of this next process, which you all may have seen a handout as we came in. And really, this is just kind of a generic flow chart of kind of the process that we're using to move through the implementation of the lead guidance. So currently, we're working through a background study, and what that means is we are evaluating the naturally occurring lead concentrations in soils within the Butte Priority Soils Operable Unit specifically. Also kind of, I should also reiterate, this is not a linear path, this is just a figure, but we're also working through reviewing site-specific information. And so that, that also includes rerunning the IEUBK model, which is a biokinetic model. It's also looking at evaluating the properties that have been cleaned up to date, understanding what properties we may have to revisit in the future that may have already been cleaned up, and looking at the potential expansion of the operable unit as a whole. And so through all of that review of information, we will be able to determine a new cleanup level, a new action level that would replace what's currently memorialized in the 2006 ROD, and instead be able to replace that through the next process, which is part of every Superfund process, which is developing and putting out for public comment a proposed plan. And that's where we issue to the community what we have identified as that new action level, that new cleanup level. And there's an opportunity for public comment, which is very exciting. And I want to emphasize that, like, that is the most important thing that you can do on a Superfund site, is be engaged during that process, because you do have a voice as a part of the proposed plan process to get to the final memorialization of that, which becomes the ROD amendment. And that is what governs the cleanup. That is the decision that governs the cleanup. So we've already talked a little bit about these bullets, but we're looking at the full breadth of this. And I want to emphasize, again, as Emma has spoke about, this is happening nationally at all lead sites across the country, and even specifically across the region. And this kind of flow chart that I just showed is something that's happening across all of our regional sites. This has been something that we've developed as far as the step-by-step process of what this rollout really looks like, because we are leveraging resources in lots of different ways, leveraging sites where we have like a fund lead, like East Helena, where it's a part of what has to be budgeted for through Congress, versus here where we have a potentially responsible party. But the process, the Superfund process in determining our cleanup level is consistent. And that's what I want to make sure that everyone understands. And so the other piece of that, which we've already highlighted, is the importance of community engagement. We are, Emma and I, as we're getting to know all of you, we've already started to meet with some of the stakeholder groups, certainly meeting with project partners right now. We're in the meet and greet phase of learning the site, and we're grateful again for your patience. But we want to emphasize our commitment to public engagement in the future. We're looking at having another community meeting like this in May, where hopefully we'll be able to provide you with the concrete answers that we know you're looking for on other aspects of the project. But then Emma and I are looking at starting some kind of office hour that would be routine. People would know where to find us in any given week, where we can be made available to you. So if there's other questions and concerns that you have, you can come in and chat with us, or maybe you want some additional site background information. That would be a time that we would be opening it up for everyone to come and chat with us. So just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that we're really working to ensure that we are available.
Yeah, I think, and one thing too, just in terms of, so again, this guidance was issued for nationwide in January. And our team has been working as quickly as we can to understand what this means for you and how to make action on it as quickly as we can. Probably all are wondering what timeliness means for the federal government, and what we're targeting at this point is summer to get to a proposed plan. Summer is kind of a nebulous term, but that's, again, it's the best answer that we can give you at this time. And as we work through this process, we'll be continually getting the community updates and working closely with our stakeholders to make sure that you all understand where we are in the schematic, and that you can hopefully follow closely, so that, like Molly said, we can, when the proposed plan is ready, hopefully you all will have your comments ready as well. So
So that's, I mean, those are the main highlights of the evening. Again, we're in the information gathering stage. And the main highlights of the evening were to introduce you to the new faces that you'll be interacting with on the project and provide you the upcoming steps for the lead guidance. So we want to make sure that everyone had our contact information for future questions. I'm going to turn it over to our facilitator for the community conversation aspect. Go ahead and leave this up.
Okay, we're gonna dive in. So we've got
The thing said-
about
Things
35
that the
minutes.
agitators supposedly help cleaning,
I don't know who's got the point on this. Can you turn the
but all the
Down
other
up on
ones
this.
are.
mute this one? Okay, thanks. Okay, so we got about 35 minutes. Again, Molly and Emma are here for their first time and here to talk about where they are on lead. And so I know that you probably have questions that you want them to answer. If you have those questions, they're likely to say, well, we'll look into that, which is fine. But I just want you to have the right expectation about the kinds of answers you're going to get tonight, because they're just getting started. They're getting started on the site as project managers, but they're also just getting started with this new guidance on lead. So more answers to come, not very many tonight. But what they could use, what they've asked me to help you, give them some help with, is to understand what you're worried about, what you're thinking, what your perspectives are, what you hope for as this all goes forward. Lead in particular, but anything to do with the Superfund cleanup, to understand your perspectives would be really helpful. And then when we break at 7, if you have some specific questions, great time to talk to them, let them know what those questions are. There has been a bit, and some of you know this full well, a kind of tortured process of getting questions answered. Some of you asked questions in August, and then those questions went into some place and you got answers months later or not at all. So tonight, if there are questions, they're going to know what they are, and we're not going to do some formal answer and go through some tortured document to give you an answer months later. Not very satisfying. They're going to know what those questions are and use them in their conversations with you and in future meetings. So if you have questions, prefer that at 7, but if you haven't, do it. More important, what's really important for you to tell them about what you care about, the future of this community, and what they need to know so that they can do their job effectively. We have a sign-up sheet. Our first sign-up who might talk left early. He told me he would. So I'm going to move to the next guest on the list. I have some maybes. I'll come back to the maybes if you want to talk. JP, looks like you're first up.
Thank you. So I'm JP Gallagher, Chief Executive of BPSOU Remedial. We're cautiously optimistic. I think that there's been a lot of promises made in the past that really keeps the community on edge here. You look back at Deputy Director Benedetto came to Butte, promised in 2024 that we were going to start relisting Butte. So our community has been once bid, twice shy. It's more like about 20 times bid and about 40 times shy. So there's a lot of people in here that have really some specific questions about what's gone on. Last August, we did have a Q&A and we have promises made that there was answers were going to happen. And, Molly and Emma, we met and with Carolina the other day, and we really are cautiously optimistic. One of the things that I see that has been heard is that we needed more boots on the ground. Not to throw stones at the kid, but the kid was here by himself. And I don't think he had enough help to do the things that were needed to do here with all the operable units that we're dealing with here. So we're so happy to see that the screening level went to 200. That gave us hope. We know that we're a multi-source community. Our housing stock's going to show just in that alone that screening level, our action level should be down in that low level as well. And one of the things that our community deals with all the time is that the cleanup level in Anaconda is different than it is here in Butte. And that's a bone of contention because we know we have smelters. We know we have more than just hard rock mining in our community. And so we want to make it known that we expect our cleanup to be just as robust in our community as it is in Anaconda. And that's not pointing us against them. It's saying that we all deserve the best here. And so that screening level, we're glad for the whole United States for that to be lower, because more protective is better for everybody. And so those are some of the things that as we move forward, we're going to work with you. Anything you need from Butte Silver Bow, we have a great team that we work with. We have Eric Hassler and our Superfund division, now the Department of Reclamation, who works hard every single day that addresses these issues. Every single day that works in it, that probably has more vested than anybody in this community. And so I want to make sure that we're listened to in our community, that our community partners that have been in this fight throughout the years are heard as well. And so, as I said, we're cautiously optimistic. I'm so happy to hear this. I know that there's also going to be another lead over the top of the project managers that kind of oversees all of the operable units underneath Carolina as well. That's great news for us. Everything I've heard from you guys, I'm grateful to work with you. Whatever you need from Butte Silver Bow, reach out to us as well, because we have a lot of expertise in there too, and also our consultant, Water Environmental Technologies, with Josh Vincent too, has a ton of knowledge and expertise as well. So we're looking forward to our partnership.
Thanks. The rest of them are just meetings. So, Ed's up.
Yeah,
Ed, good. Love to hear what you
I
think.
have a question and just a comment. Before there was one of you, now there's two of you. How are you going to work together to make this happen?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for highlighting that question. We're happy to share that. So we're looking at, to be more efficient with all of the work that's going on, dividing our workload so that we're supporting two different aspects of the project. So I'll be taking the lead on the RMAP program and the implementation of the lead guidance.
And I'll be taking the lead on the corridor projects, and then we know that there's a lot more buckets than just those two, but right now, that's kind of how we're splitting it. We also are gonna be available and up to site knowledge, like keeping each other on view too. So if one of us is unavailable, there'll still be a contact that they'll have. So yeah, I think we're looking forward to being able to make a lot of progress with that and be able to split that workload so that we can.
So in the corridor, it's you, RMAP is you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Molly.
The comment is on your slide about what you're investigating, you said you're going to investigate or reinvestigate the amount of lead in the natural rock or whatever, but you didn't mention the effect of the smelting. JD mentioned that. And there's also dust from the Anaconda smelter that comes over here. So are you planning to review that as well?
Yep, that's all part of, so the background study is one aspect of what we're looking at. That's kind of the first step, if you will, of memorialization of that background number, that naturally occurring level. But then all of that other information is built into that review of site-specific information, which goes into the actual number, the actual new cleanup number. So that's where we're looking at bioavailability, IDUBK model, all of that additional modeling work that supports coming to that other number. Yes, the actual level.
Okay, I got two more. Cindy and then Bill Foley, and then this list is done. We'll just open it up. Okay, Cindy, good.
Okay, I have three questions. One is, it's probably one, my first one out of the gate is probably one you can't answer, but I'd like you to pass it along because I think it's worth an answer. Why did the EPA change the personnel? Because I think a lot of people are very nervous about the institutional knowledge that the folks that have been currently working on the project, and this is nothing against you, but being new and trying to, get to the level where you understand what's happening and understand the concerns of the community. So that's a big question. I don't know if you know that. Why the personnel had changed.
So I can speak to that. So the EPA did recognize that we needed additional resources on this project. Therefore,
You all here?
therefore,
It might help if you just.
Stand up.
Yeah.
so EPA recognized there were additional resources that were needed on this project. We have years of experience now with implementing the RMAP program. And one project manager is not as effective as two. Therefore, we brought two new project managers on here to start this rolling. And then EPA is an advisor in the background.
Okay, so then, I do a follow-up, but then I have to take 20 more minutes, but.
Yeah, it's the other two.
Yeah, so the other two, I like the idea of the routine office hours, but even better would be for one or two of you to live in Butte. That's more of a comment, because I think, you know, having direct access to people and having them live in our community makes such a difference. It really does. So that's more of a comment. And then, I guess my final comment, or say question is, with regard to the fact that the August meeting and the discussion of the dirty dirt issue, the on-site material, there were some really substantive questions that were asked by the community. And now it'll be 9 months to wait for an answer. And I don't think that's a good thing.
So I just want to add a little bit to that as well. We have answered a lot of questions and they are on the website. So if you need a link to some of those questions and answers, we'll be happy to provide that as well.
Okay, Bill.
On the EPA website.
I
can share links.
Just piggybacking off what Cindy said there, you guys are dealing with Butte. It'd be nice if you at least would come to Butte more often and spend time. I had a lot of people I talked to back in the fall, because we uncovered this, there's a secret plan to the repository side of the committee, which I'm secret, and they decided they were gonna dump it up in Centerville, right off the Centerville, and double the historic neighborhood called the Dublin Gulch. But it takes, so the people are living there, and all of a sudden, they're gonna have toxic waste dumped in and covered with 18 inches of soil right next to their house. Obviously, these people are pretty upset and pretty concerned about their safety, their property values, different things. And when I asked people about it, the county pointed to the EPA kind of, the EPA didn't really say they couldn't really answer questions about it, about deciding the repository site. And I just would like to add, hopefully, that when we pick a site, that you guys work to make sure that the Land Richfield and British Petroleum and the county is not going to dump toxic waste next to houses. It's kind of like picking up dog waste from one side of the yard and moving it to the other side of the yard. It's kind of the way we look at it, clean up this area just to pollute this area. And I just hope that you guys could take into consideration and not, when you're doing cleanup, not causing more problems for other neighbors who thought they were living somewhere else.
Okay, that was the list. So for people who chose to sign up before, but floor is open. If you have things that you really want them to know about that can be top of mind, like the importance of the repository site decision. So please. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you
Good to
again.
be back.
So I'm Doug Hartline, and I'm very interested to know, maybe you can't talk about it today, but have that. What is the process that you're going to use to determine the light availability and background in this area? I mean, it's obviously a scientific question, it's got a lot of scientific content.
Yeah.
And is that available on the website somewhere?
We're working through it currently. So we don't have an answer for you right now because we're still working through it. So when we do get through that, then that's something we can talk with you about.
And then the second question follows up also on something Cindy asked me. When you're having office hours, are they going to be in Butte or are they going to be in Helena?
In Butte, yeah, in Butte, yeah.
And like how many hours per week?
It's something we're still workshopping. So yeah, we don't have definitive concrete times and date yet, but that's something we're gonna be, as soon as we have that information, we'll pass it along to you to make sure that we can figure out what's gonna work best for all of you. So,
Looking for an appropriate neutral location that people feel comfortable coming into. Yeah.
With or without beer. Okay, great. One here and another there. Please.
I was just gonna say, Steve Tech has an office on right uptown, and
we would love to offer that to EPA as a place you guys can come and sit.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Please.
Yeah, so you talked about, Molly, you're talking about doing the RMAP program.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was negotiated in the big priority soil to be a community-wide RMAP. So is that going to, are you looking at the community-wide and how is that going to potentially affect the consent decree?
Yeah, those are all questions rolled up into that. It's a very complicated issue because of the designation of the RMAP program boundaries, as well as the designation of the operable unit itself. So those are all very important questions that are things that we're working through internally from also a legal perspective.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that too, this change is definitely, it's going to make a change on this site, but we're still progressing with site work as well, right? So this isn't like a stop, we're stopping work, we're still progressing. We're gonna work expeditiously to try and get this change put into place, but yes.
There's still properties that are identified for cleanup this year, and that work would still continue. There's still ongoing pieces of the RMAP program sampling, et cetera, that would continue as well.
Please.
Greatly, Brian, I'll just follow up to John's question and add a couple of hints or tidbits. I think in these meetings, very often when we communicate with the public, we use terminology that is inaccessible. And so if we could please be as open and accessible with our terminology, that would be appreciated, especially when using acronyms. You know what those acronyms that now become words mean. And then secondly, I would also put some punctuation on John's question, because our neighborhoods are outside of the BPSOU, yet our addicts do qualify for remediation of the current action levels. And so I strongly recommend that we include the entire landscape as it's under administrative cover right now. And then finally, with our communication with the public, the organization that I work for, be more than willing to help you with getting information out and communicating to our schools and our students and being a resource. And then lastly, will you be using the studies that were previously done on bioavailability to inform these new studies, or are your background information, or the new studies that will be conducted on bioavailability?
So we're starting with the information that we have, and if we feel that that is adequate, then we'll move forward. If we feel that we need to collect more information, then we will, but we haven't reached that decision yet. So
I think there's plenty of people in the room that would like to visit with you about the accuracy of those bioavailability studies, especially related to our and
Great. I'll lay back.
I'm just curious. Give like a short background on the level of accountability to what I was.
I don't think a short answer is possible.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I think he asked for us to give a short answer on how the current lead action level review was determined. And I don't feel at this point that I can give you the best answer that I think should be provided to you. What I do know is that it was established in the 2006 ROD, and it was identified through the same superfund process that all these sites are going through. So site data was collected, and through that site data, it was applied to a risk assessment. And that risk assessment, using that site-specific information, they identified what level of lead in soil would cause, in EPA terminology, adverse risk to someone who might be exposed to that. So what if a kid is playing in dirt, what level of lead in that dirt is going to cause a problem to that kind of. So with that kind of data that's collected a long time ago, that was all piled into create the current action level at Empire Hill. And it's a very similar process to what we're using to identify new cleanup level here, looking at that risk assessment. And the values that are getting plugged into that are what's next to the screening levels, and that's why those are getting reduced. The values of the risk assessment are getting reduced, which will then allow us to relook at what our cleanup level. Yeah. No, that's okay. Yeah, hopefully that was it, but we can, hopefully provide more too, but.
Good. Got one here.
Oh, yeah, I noticed on your project flow chart that you have public comment at the end, kind of report. I think it's kind of state of the art on project management to involve stakeholders at the beginning of the project? You're
Yes.
trying to try and get the project definition, the scope of work figured out, so that when you get down to the very bottom, there's not a lot of surprises. Who do you consider to be stakeholders? And where will they be involved in this process before you begin the project of waiting all that information and coming up?
I mean, the important part of that public comment process is that that is the opportunity for all groups to weigh in, whether it's stakeholders, responsible parties, certainly community members, other, like CTEC would also have the opportunity to provide comment at that time. Like that's the memorialization, because that's where we are able to provide our responsiveness summary, which is that giant summary of all of the questions that have been answered, and the summarization of that to provide answers to the public as to what questions were posed by the entire group and summarized that way.
So who do you consider to be stakeholders?
So I think everyone sitting in this room is an important aspect to this project. And that's why we are going to continue meeting with you all to be able to share this information. So that information can be shared up to that point and beyond that. So, yeah.
Okay, I got one from that came in online, and then we'll go to Evan. So this was one of this meeting is hybrid, and sadly, some people are having to do this online. But it's what torture we inflict upon people. So the process of possibly determining a new lead action level is the subject. In the time it takes to evaluate new lead levels, what assurance does the public have that current levels are actually protected?
Yeah. So cleanup will be ongoing. So the sites that have currently qualified, the action levels that we have today will inform those cleanups. However, the fill material that would be brought into those residential properties is we have to meet a certain criteria, which is very strict. It is very low. And so those cleanups will be protected going forward. I don't know if that addresses the person's comment.
Okay, we got about 15 minutes, and then you're going to get to spend time with Emma and Molly and Catherine and Mackenzie. But first, Evan.
One of the things that you want to get acquainted with early here is that in Butte, we want to know what's going on. We're looking for openness and opportunities for participation. And we tend to want to operate pursuant to Montana's Constitution, which gives, in governmental activity, gives citizens the right to participate before decisions are made and have the right to know, which includes open meetings, and so on. We were behind the curtain with the CD for what, 15 years? I don't know, something like that. And when it finally came out, next thing we know, well, all the meetings were still being held, invitation only. If you didn't get an email, you weren't allowed in there. And so last year, I requested Casey to open up meetings in Butte. That request was supported by Butte Silverbow, by state in terms of DEQ and the NRD, all supported that. To her credit, she responded positively, but only halfway. She said, we'll open meetings, but we'll open technical meetings, of which there was one a month. The last one of those occurred in early December. Wasn't one in January, there wasn't one in February, wasn't scheduled in early March. I attended 2 of them, couldn't speak, but that was the deal. Learned a lot, but guess what? The only open meetings that the EPA is committed to are no longer being held. I would urge you to talk to KC on behalf of the local community here. We'll do it as well. And any meeting EPA has here, any meeting EPA has here should be open to the public. And the technology allows it to be open online as well as in person. Again, having attended these things, they're very useful. I want to say, you didn't open the meetings that the RMAC program has. Very nicely, Eric has been gracious enough to let me participate in those and see what's going on. But there's a lot of things that are going on, a lot of meetings that suddenly there's nothing we can go listen to now. So maybe we should fix that and have more openness and participation of few people.
Okay, we see if there's anyone new, no, go back. Over here, and then we'll do some repeat.
Just want to share just a little bit of history and then ask a question. As you're well aware, a lot of people in this room have been working on this site for decades, and there's a lot of exhaustion and even work around this lead update. So I'm sure you're aware of this, but I'm just going to go over it real quick that 12 years ago now, the CDC changed their reference level, which underpinned the threshold lead value in the IEPA model, which is how we established our action level here. For 12 years, we've been asking the EPA for this update. Very specifically, every 5-year review, every time we get a chance, we've been asking for exactly this update. So really be nice if every possible resource was dedicated to this process to do it expeditiously because of that time that we've been waiting for these updates. And, you know, kids have come and gone. My sons I raised here with the old action levels. I would love to see this updated quickly. My question for you is about RMAP. RMAP, all the human health portions of the CD were pulled out at the last minute. All of our comments about those were disregarded. And at this point, we don't know how to participate in that. You mentioned the importance of public participation. The draft plan is being circulated. We don't know how we can ask questions about it or make comments. The biomonitoring group is meeting. We don't have any idea how we can participate. So I would really love if you could get us some answers about that specific participation avenue.
Thank you.
Good, okay.
So I just wanted to offer a couple of things about, the one we talked about this is that BPSOU should be the housing site for a lot of the information that's easy. That should be where all the questions that have been housed on EPA, where they said they answer questions. We had a hard time finding that as well. So we've talked about it internally about housing everything that, any questions, anything that, all that people need to know at BPSOU.com and really facilitating that well. The second thing is that our Department of Reclamation has moved into a new facility down at the National Guard Armory. I think it's appropriate that we offer office space to you to be down there because we can work from twofold right there. They can come in and you guys need your office hours there. We can offer that opportunity to be down there as well. And then there can be questions of our division as well to be able to answer those questions to the public as well. So that offers more transparency to do that, and we will work with our partners to do that. That was one of the things that we didn't have in the past. We didn't have space that made it available. We do have that now down at the National Guard Armory and the facility that they're there now. And we can post hours that we can facilitate for you guys and for us as well, for the public to come in and ask questions. Also, I just want to offer that as well.
Yes. Okay. Did I see one out of the corner of my eye? Is there more? Other comments, thoughts?
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. I know that you just mentioned about meetings. And I wanted to clarify, there haven't been any meetings, so it's not that you haven't been.
No, that's,
But-
you
mean,
I know they're not meeting, which means all kinds of stuff's going on and we don't know. So,
Well, I also want to say that we are going to resume those again. So you should be invited to those coming up. So just want to let you know, those are going to be starting.
the request for her to open more than one meeting. There are other meetings that go on that we're not invited into right now.
Perfect.
Okay, so, getting to this answer on lead carefully with your participation and quickly is important. Getting to the topics that didn't get covered tonight and that they are still coming up to speed on-site materials being at the top of that list, the repository being at the top of that list, and then the ability to meaningfully participate. And then lastly, their presence here and spending time with you and in this community and connected to the people that you're connected to. Those are the biggies from tonight? Big takeaways?
I think we can also say we are committing to be here more regularly as well. So we're hoping to do a meeting again in the later spring, summer, so maybe May, June timeframe. So, you know, we hope to keep these more regular and, you know, have this be a more casual environment as well, where we can engage with everybody regularly too. So this isn't The one and done, we will be continuing along with their office hours as well.
I do have one other question.
Yes.
What is your rule for success in this process? I mean, because there's a lot of words being said here, who will do this, go through this, go do this. But what is your, you have any lines in the sand that will be a successful project?
Yeah.
What do you see as success from EPA at this time?
Carolina said, what do you see as success?
Perfect cleanup and you.
I mean, time scale also.
So,
Yes.
so I'm hearing progress is one metric of success.
But yes, but getting some waste out and. But clean up that.
Clean it up.
But that's.
And that goes back a little bit to what we said earlier about the stakeholders at the beginning. That needs to be a question that is identified the scope of work and the definition of the project. What is considered to be success, so that all of the stakeholders understand where this is going to go to. And it gets there, it's not a surprise. So I think that's what success is. No surprises. And then we get done what we said, what said is going to get done. And people are not suspicious about what's going on in closed meetings and everything else. Let's set it out at the beginning to be understood. And then you can move forward to accomplish it. Once it's accomplished, everybody says that's what we agreed to do. I think that's a success.
Okay, I got one more and then we're gonna go through those doors and they are too, and you can hang out with them in there. Yeah.
John, I have two more questions.
Oh, okay.
But I don't want to ignore them, but.
Okay.
So.
Okay, I saw the second one, it resembled the first, but is there more? So go ahead and I'll look up this one.
Planning Richfield's about dumping where we're gonna dump the waste from the sites. We were told we couldn't dump it in Montana Resources property where they dumped the Eric Davidson, which was a complete cleanup. And that's done, waiting to like to see that. We were told it couldn't be dumped there because since it's Superfund, see that wasn't the Superfund. This is a Superfund, we have to have a cap. And that was, so the EPA was the reason they couldn't dump it in Montana Resources, where they had to move for it and eventually use it. Is there any reason why we can't, look at those regulations and they, because it's common sense, we have a lot of active mindset there. The reason we can't, put dump there, so I can do fair thing.
So the repository setting is ongoing. There hasn't been a determination made on that. And that's something that we are actively engaging in. That's a decision made by the citing committee and the settlement defendants, and they're going to propose something to the EPA. And so, yeah, a decision hasn't been made on that.
But they were using that as a reason why we can't dump it there. So they were using the EPA regulations as a reason why they had to dump, basically why they had to dump in the neighborhoods instead of the mine waste with the EPA regulations.
Yeah, I'm not sure what regulation that is specifically, but I think I'll take that into account when we are actively engaging in that. And yeah.
Okay.
I do, here's one other comment.
Okay. Last one, I promised last one. This is the last one.
You never answered my question. He asked me what I considered success. What do you consider success?
I think clean up with the community. I mean, that's why we both got into working for the EPA. I mean, I wanted to work for the EPA long before I ended up here because I know the importance of meaningful engagement. That's why I became a Peace Corps volunteer, because I believe in community service. So I believe in ensuring the cleanup of a community.
Okay, on that note, hang out with them in there. Thank you all for coming.
Just.
Oh, yes, there are others in the room who you might also want to talk to. So in addition to the representatives from the EPA, you've got Butte Silverboat folks who are up here and who spoke and waved at you. There are others. AR's got some staff here. DEQ. People from DEQ, there you go, DEQ people, right over there. Others. Okay, thank you for catching me. Okay, see you then. Thank you again for coming. Much appreciated.